Heyo everybody, Haku here for this week's read-through for Magical Girl Raising Project, or Mahou Shoujo Ikusei Keikaku, Limited, Chapter 9, The Devil in Flames. And it's actually pretty crazy. I was thinking about earlier that we're already 2/3 of the way through starting the final 4 chapters, and that should mean that we'll be done by sometime in October, probably, with Limited, and get to just move on into the next arc. So we're getting pretty close to the end of this. We've only had one death, so it is really a different way of writing things than I guess the first 2 arcs. I don't know if that means we'll get a bunch of deaths near the end, or if that just means that this is legitimately a more chill arc in order to introduce us into new characters that will be here for the long-term storytelling part of things, which is completely possible. Now, where we left off, I won't get too much into recap because I want to read as much as possible here. There's a page break at the end of page 13 and then one at the very beginning of page 21. So basically I either read 13 pages here and 14 pages next time, or I read 20 here and just get a little short 7-page video next time, which is what I'd like to do. I'd like to make it through 20, but if we only do 13, that's kind of like an even half and half split. Then that is what it is. But I've kind of enjoyed sort of the long video then shorter one, longer one then shorter one that I've been doing the past few weeks. But we'll see how things end up going. But toward the end we got more development for Postery. Of course things are going incredibly well for the bad guys, but the good guys actually got a small bit of reprieve last time, where Funny Trick has now escaped, not sure where to yet, and also Mana's group got away, but Rainbow's group has gone straight into the frying pan here, going up against not only the villains, but a villain group that outnumbers them. But though they outnumber them, we know that the villains are way stronger than these newbie magical girls, but Mao Pam is far from a newbie magical girl, so Mao Pam could be the one thing that tips the scales back into balance and makes this a fair balanced fight for them. But we'll see how it goes, of course. Now, as far as deaths go here, I think everybody's pretty safe for the moment. Just because early on I was like, okay, there's a lot of development there for either Captain Grace or Funny Trick to die, and whichever one dies it pushes the story for the other one forward. There's a lot of development for that to happen, and it did happen, but at this point there's not much like death flag type development for the other characters. If anything, we just got a bit more onto Postery's character, and her death would push Rainbow's story forward, whether it's a tragedy because Rainbow is actually the evil assassin and all that, and it was tragic because she died for an evil assassin who she thought was her friend, or whether Rainbow is actually good and it just pushes her story forward in a normal way. Either way, Postery is the one I could most see dying, but even then I think it might be a little soon, but we'll see. Or Mao Pam. If Mao Pam did die here, I could see the excuse being, okay, well, she's dying to make the villain threat seem stronger from Pythie's group, but Pythie's group has already been built up as being super strong. They've been wiping the floor with the good guys pretty much. Not necessarily in direct fights, but just in the general flow of how the story is being told. They're already pretty dominant. So yeah, that could happen. If anything, maybe some of the bad guys would be more likely to die than the good guys here, because I could see Top Pop dying to push forward Pythie's story, but we don't really know enough about her yet. I think maybe we would have to get some flashbacks or some backstory for her, and then I'd think, okay, she's definitely going to die once we got that. Or I could see either Sonia or Pukin dying to push the other one forward, kind of like the Funny Trick and Captain Grace situation. But I've gone on nearly 5 minutes, so let's actually get to reading. Those were just some general thoughts about how the story's going and what I think will happen here. Because I think we're sticking with this. I don't know if we'll jump away to that other group too much. And if anything, Funny Trick may actually be able to help these 3 if she's still in the area. So that'd be cool. So we have Chapter 9, The Devil in Flames, and we're starting with Rainbow with remaining time 11 hours and 20 minutes. She shaded herself against the brightening night sky, which still hasn't quite reached daytime yet. One at a time, Mao Pam turned Postery and Rainbow's coats into black wings. She was finally relieved of her cramped restraints. Rainbow wanted to turn her neck, but she resisted. If she get slapped one more time, her cheeks would probably break. Mao Pam left Postery and Rainbow between 3 vending machines lined up together and a building. Stay here. Don't leave for anything. Oh yeah, and they haven't confronted them yet. They just saw the smoke from the car crash, so it's clear that they're now going to be the ones that are running into the bad guy group. But Mao Pam's leaving them behind, so maybe it's just going to be Mao Pam 1v5 if we're including Wed in here. And then these two, maybe Funny Trick, will meet up with them. But Mao Pam left Postery and Rainbow between 3 vending machines lined up together and a building. Stay here. Don't leave for anything, she told them as she flew away. When she didn't have to worry about being spotted by Mao Pam, Toko popped out of Rainbow's chest. Looks like there was an accident. Probably. I couldn't hear it, so it's probably not a nearby accident, though. So, you think one of her wings found it? Those wings. It's scary how they can freely transform, but do you think they have that function too? Toko and Rainbow's discussion was interrupted by Postery. What should we do? What do you mean? When Toko glared at Postery, the tone of her voice dropped. Mao Pam, should we tell her everything? No? Is that supposed to be a joke? Toko batted her feet and swung her arms. Because of her movements, Rainbow frowned her face and gently held down the top of her clothes. Toko, stop rustling around inside my clothes. Does she even know what'll happen if she tells her everything? What the hell? So she's saying she wants to sell me out. Is that it? So you're the kind of magical girl that would repay the enemy, instead, huh, Postery? Repay the enemy. That's not what I'm trying to do. Postery hung her head. After slightly thinking, she replied, Is what Mao Pam said the truth? Are you being chased because you did bad things, Toko? Toko raised one eyebrow and then lowered it again, opening her palms upward, bending her elbows, shrugging. That's because she's a bad guy. She's justifying catching me by telling you I'm a bad guy. That's why it'd be bad if you actually took her seriously. Didn't she just slap you 100 times, Postery? She's a bad guy, so she could only talk with violence. I'm a good fairy, so I'd never use violence on you. Can Pukin get this bitch already? While still hanging her head, Postery spoke out. Toko will always repeat her dislike of her idea. You're thinking about whether you should follow Mao Pam or not, aren't you? Then you should go and run, shouldn't you? Just how long are you going to skulk around here anyway? But she said not to leave. Why are you actually listening to what she says? Just ignore it. Her wings aren't here, she's not here. Now's your biggest chance. If you don't run now, when are you going to run again? While Postery wasn't confident in herself, somehow she won't retract her original stance. She didn't know what Mao Pam would do if she found Toko, so she's been resisting the urge to tell her. Postery pulled on Rainbow's sleeves as if to say, What do we do, Cowdy? Well, Toko would say, What I'm saying isn't wrong. As she made a fuss inside Rainbow's chest, the two of them asked Rainbow for her opinion, as she closed her eyes for 30 seconds to meditate before finally giving her opinion. Okay, scene break. I'm going to grab a sip of water at most scene breaks, I think, just because I've been kind of dealing with my throat getting scratchy when I record lately, and I don't want to have to struggle through recording the later parts of this, and you guys have issues with my voice being all dead. Alright, so now we're jumping ahead 30 minutes-ish in time for Kuru Hime, 10 hours, 53 minutes. The decoy car didn't go as planned. Half of their plan of having their enemies chase their cars and ambushing them from behind had been ruined. For some reason, their enemies decided to chase the car with their own car, so their plan changed to autopilot the car to the barrier and crash it, then pray their enemies crash into it too. Ripple's team should have escaped their enemies by now. Kuru Hime had split up with them. They told her it's dangerous and tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen to their persuasions. As if to shake it off, she ran off in the opposite direction. That's not a good plan there, Nozomi. whose hair did Frederica use with her magical skill? Mana, nanako-san, and Ripple all agreed there was no opportunity for their hair to be taken. Ripple told them that Frederica's large magical girl hair collection was supposed to have been confiscated. They guessed that she must have gotten hair from inside the barrier, so the highest possibility for a candidate would be Kurukuru Hime. So, where did she get Kurukuru Hime's hair strands? Pythie Frederica was said to have a large crystal ball. She wears a veil with star decorations, a long skirt boldly split at the front, and long black hair reaching her ankles. Kurukuru Hime didn't remember any magical girl with that description, meaning it should be okay to think that she hasn't met her before. If she hasn't met her before, how'd this person get Kurukuru Hime's hair strand? She had a very bad feeling about that. Kurukuru Hime begged to be able to go home and see the situation in her house. In the end, she decided to split up. If Frederica was only watching Kurukuru Hime, then it'd be less trouble for the others if she just split up. That was the most reasonable thing to do. Ripple, Nanako-san, and Mana should understand. If they traveled together with Kurukuru Hime, it'd be impossible for them to escape Frederica's gaze. The only reason they didn't say it was because they were being nice to her. It'd be easy for them to sacrifice Kurukuru Hime, who they just met earlier, yet they couldn't propose it. So Kurukuru Hime had to say it herself. Besides, she had a reason for wanting to go it alone anyways. She told them her phone number as Nozomi Himeno. Ripple told her to watch her back, and Frederica could kidnap her at any time. While watching over her back, Ripple told her to, Kurukuru Hime hurried to the Himeno household, and she arrived shortly thereafter. Nozomi thought to turn back to a human to take out the keys to her house, but as she thought of it, she realized she didn't have to. She didn't see any locks to her house, and the door surroundings were dyed black. She cried out words that she couldn't understand. Opening the door and seeing on the corridor a red pool of blood that flowed toward the footrest, she screamed out loud. And now we're cutting to Pythie. Back 20 minutes. Pythie Frederica remaining time 11 hours 12 minutes. Frederica nearly shouted as she saw a black magical girl flying in the skies ahead. She had a well-endowed body covered in parts of cloth, a long and black slender tail, its end tipped with a heart-like shape, decorated with a red ribbon tie, 2 pairs of horns sticking out from her head. Her eyes were red. Hanageko Kujo was also a red-eyed magical girl, but this one's eyes were somewhat darker, just like the cliched expression, looking at her can suck you in. And then there were those 4 wings. People who didn't know what they were would consider them wings at a first glance. The 4 black wings were waiting behind the girl. The 4 black wings were floating behind the magical girl, and it wasn't just the wings. The girl was floating as well. Mao Pam. Even to people who didn't love magical girls as much as Frederica, they would have heard her name. The force musician Clanberry's mentor, who Frederica had the most interest in, embraced her investigations and continued her research on. Awe, hatred, jealousy, worship. There were many opportunities to have a variety of feelings when speaking her name. Finally, Frederica looked at her hair. Shortly trimmed, dull-colored blonde hair that didn't even reach her shoulders. It seemed her bangs had been roughly done. It seemed dull, or perhaps unrestrained would be the right word. She breathed out a sigh. It was supposed to be a short, non-fancy style of hair, but why did she sigh as if she saw a glossy, fresh, shiny piece of work? She wanted to stroke it, rub it, feel it on her cheeks. She wanted to taste it in her mouth. She wanted to lick the horns growing out of her hair to make it beautiful. Oh, Master, you're drooling? Oh, pardon me. Frederica is the most comedic character in the series. Frederica accepted a handkerchief that Top Pop offered, one that had a 256th note design. Wiping the edges of her mouth, her opponent's overwhelming strength exuded an overwhelming charm to Frederica. Pukin had already pulled out her sword, and Sonia was standing in front of her, ready to bear upon her toes. This is the first time Frederica's seen Pukin's serious face since the jailbreak. She was neither grinning, smiling arrogantly, nor was she displaying her bad mood in her eyes. She flashed her expressionless look towards Mao Pam. Mao Pam's face also seemed to mirror Pukin's expression. They evaluated each other before coming to the same conclusion. They properly recognized each other as a powerful opponent. Mao Pam quietly landed without a sound. The 4 wings covered her entire body. Frederica urged a warning with a small voice. Despite her low voice, she knew that her enemy could hear her, but she couldn't talk loudly right now. She's Mao Pam. She's known as the most powerful magical girl affiliated with the Foreign Affairs Division. Oh, the most powerful? So they disregarded me. Among modern magical girls, she is the most powerful, not the most powerful in history. Mao Pam looked this way. She saw through her. It wasn't Frederica's imagination. Her body temperature fell down by 2 or 3 degrees. Top Pop shuddered. Mao Pam moved her line of sight. She saw Hana on the ground beside Sonia's feet. She observed for a few seconds before returning her line of sight here again. Who are you? English. So she did hear what they were saying. Her pronunciation was no different from a native. She had a voice that overwhelmed anything. Even if her voice and tone were different, it strangely made Frederica think of Clanberry. It was probably because Frederica wanted to think that way. Pukin replied back to Mao Pam without even hesitating. Before we tell you our names, would it not be courteous to say yours first? My name is Mao Pam. Are any of you the assassin? My name is Pukin. How dare you accuse me of being an assassin? Pukin is pretty funny too, though. The air between the two of them sparked. Top Pop grabbed the end of the rope that tied up Hana and dragged her back, trying to hide behind the wreckage of the Fury. But then, the rope was cut and Hana's body floated in the air. Top Pop had a surprised look on her face as she looked at Hana. The rectangular wing transformed into a humanoid shape and carried Hana with it, floating in the air. Not only was her movements quick, but the way she was able to draw attention to herself while also moving her wings elsewhere was brilliant. I'm sure you've no need for a hostage. Pukin wasn't upset by Mao Pam's actions at all. At least she wasn't visibly upset. Pukin distorted her lips as if despising her opponent. She pointed her sword at Mao Pam. I didn't expect you to rob a hostage without paying their ransom. I don't want to hear that from someone who would torture a prisoner of war. Stopping Pukin from stepping forward, Sonia took a single step forward instead. She grabbed onto her left sleeve with her right hand, pulling it out and throwing it towards Mao Pam. The wind carried the white glove away, finally landing on Mao Pam's feet. Sonia stood up, her hands on her waist, and shouted, Fight me, 1-on-1, fair and square. Sonia issuing a duel. There were 4 of them. In terms of numbers, they had okay, death flags for Sonia. For real. In terms of numbers, they had the advantage. Why did she deliberately choose to disregard the advantage and ask for a 1-on-1 fight? Unable to measure Sonia's intentions, Frederica turned to Pukin. Pukin retreated a half-step back, whispering softly, If Sonia were to get serious, she won't be able to distinguish between friend or foe. If you don't want to get caught by her, a 1-on-1 is the only option. That's what she's trying to say. Sonia, take care of her. Frederica would rather not get caught up. She fell back alongside Pukin. You know, finding a magical girl who chooses to fight me 1-on-1, it's truly been a long time. Mao Pam replied to Sonia's shout with her own loud voice. Her face wasn't as calm as before. Everything from the top of her head to her chin was drowned in happiness, expressing her delight fully. Tell me your name. Sonia Bean. Huge wings began to grow on the black humanoid carrying Hana, flapping as it soared and flew away. Mao Pam looked down at Sonia, who had lowered her stance. She even made looking down at someone look like art, thought Frederica as she gritted her teeth joyfully. Sonia Bean, I accept your challenge. Come. Sonia ran. Mao Pam's wings slashed the sky. And now we're going to Mao Pam's point of view from 10 hours and 53 minutes. She couldn't hold back. Whether she would kill or be killed by the assassin in this mission, finding an opponent where she couldn't hold back would be very bad. Yet her head soared with euphoria. It was kill or be killed. That was how powerful her opponent was. All 4 of her wings were sent back to the battlefield. She reconfirmed that she wasn't mistaken. The swordsman and the patchwork girl are powerful enemies. Fighting 1-on-1, giving their names, suggesting the 1-on-1 so that their allies and enemies wouldn't get mixed together, all of that made Mao Pam excited. Her sense of professionalism was now gone. When she first recruited Hana, it wasn't because she wanted to rescue an ally, it was because she thought it'd be bad if their enemies used a hostage against her. 90% of Mao Pam's brain capacity, or 90% of Mao Pam's brain was occupied with wanting to enjoy a full battle, or a fun battle. Sonya was on her tiptoes, scratching at the road. She had the fighting spirit of a raging bull. The other three immediately hid back. They weren't running away, merely watching from somewhere. It'd be dangerous if she didn't pay attention to them as well. As Sonya Bean ran toward her, Mao Pam muttered, Hadraniel? Okay. Hadraniel. I couldn't tell if that was an L or an I because of the font, sorry. Or because it's kind of small. Sonya Bean ran towards her, Mao Pam muttered, Hadraniel. One piece of her wing wrapped like a wall between herself and her opponent, expanding far from the center. At the same time, Longinus, two wings became spears and attacked Sonya Bean from left and right. A large part of what affected battles between magical girls was their affinity. She chose the best way to fight so that her opponent's affinity couldn't be used. She read her enemy's attacks. If she reacted immediately against her, the enemy's attack target, then she wouldn't be unconditionally accepting her enemy's preemptive strike. Sonya's vision wasn't blocked by a wall, and while using that as a defense, spears popped out to pierce her from her blind spots. She shared her vision with her walls and spears. Okay. Being able to block her enemy's line of sight as well as one-sidedly observing the situation will become an advantage for her to stay alive. It was essential to read her enemy's movements by watching her eyesight and subtle movements using her wall. A magical girl that has a countering-based magic would wonder what to do in a situation. At that time, it wouldn't be wise to directly hit them with her spears. She had to observe the situation first. Sonya was running. She didn't try to avoid the spears. It wasn't that she wasn't avoiding it. It seemed more like she didn't feel like avoiding it. Mao Pam observed Sonya's situation. Did she have some kind of defensive magic? She thought, would she also deflect the spears? Would it not matter if she was hit? She had a similar reaction to the Arabian dancer she fought at the sky. As Sonya didn't dodge the two Longinus spears, they stabbed Sonya from the right and left side, but their tips vanished as if they were brutally erased. The Hadraniel wall wasn't an obstacle as well. Sonya merely opened a human-shaped hole, and it was over. Sonya ran towards Mao Pam whilst being filled with joy. Sonya was using a magical skill that erased anything she touched. Mao Pam was half right when she predicted that she'd have a defensive-based magical skill. The correct answer would be that her powers are both offensive and defensive at the same time. The Longinus spears had a sharpness that would make it easy to pierce thick bedrock, and Hadraniel could resist a nuclear explosion blown at ground zero. The moment Sonya touched them, she ignored any power or endurance they had and simply erased them. Something like ash would be scattered, and it was over. She broke through the wings she spent to make the one wall into spears. That was 3 wings, the last one she used to save Hana. There was nothing she could use to interrupt the distance between Sonya and Mao Pam. She knew what Sonya was going to do. She wasn't just running to get closer, she was about to try spear tackling Mao Pam's body. Pam could see it from her muscle movements. Could she stop her? But it would be impossible to stop her from above. She couldn't counter by kneeing her in the face. Mao Pam's body wouldn't be an exception to Sonya's magical skill. The moment she'd touch her, she'd disappear into dust. I need to crush her before she can attack me. Mao Pam raised her right foot 10 centimeters and brought it down with strength. The concrete that her right foot trampled began to crack, crumbling, collapsing, pointed sharply. As the concrete she stepped on suddenly collapsed, Sonya's attacking posture broke along with it. Although Mao Pam's worth in battle came from her 4 wings that she could manipulate freely, the body that these wings protected wasn't vulnerable. Mao Pam argued that magical girls who only had confidence in their magical skill would immediately fall once challenged in direct physical combat, involving punches and kicks. And that's interesting, because didn't Clanberry say the same thing about Weiss Winter Prison, I think? Mao Pam increased her distance with a backstep, instructing her spear and walls to revive. It'd take them approximately 5 seconds to fully revive, and until then she had to endure. Sonya jumped to the right and to the left, then she ran from there. She wasn't just running forward, she interwove feints and sidesteps into her movements. Mao Pam jumped at altitude 0 with an acrobatic leap, jumping and flipping, escaping Sonya's fingertips. The hair strands that couldn't escape being scattered like dust. She was still too slow, so she increased her gear by one step further. Enemies that require touch to activate their magical skill were originally relatively easy opponents to fight. If they had no fight capabilities, then Mao Pam would head to the sky and bomb them endlessly. But this was a bad place for that. While taking up her distance with Sonya, Mao Pam watched her surroundings. A 4-lane road seemed wide, but it was too narrow for Mao Pam to unleash her full power. There was an urban area just immediately ahead. If Mao Pam ran off to the sky to escape her opponent would also run into the urban area. That would make it difficult for her to chase her. If she rampaged in an urban city, the damage would be wide indeed. Mao Pam wasn't sent to slaughter innocent lives. Fortunately, she was on the outskirts of the city. There were road signs, vending machines, prairies, fields, and there were at most guardrails. Okay? There may only be a few people in the museum, but since nobody showed up when the car crashed into its pillars, it's probably uninhabited now. She had to finish her fight before the police and ambulance could come. She couldn't waste any damage. She could only see Sonya in her field of view. Were the other 3 people watching from somewhere? Her wings had finished regenerating, and she immediately instructed them to attack. Defending against the enemy was meaningless. Gehenna, she said. Her flaming wings covered Sonya's entire... Okay, so 3 people watching from somewhere. Her wings finished regenerating. She immediately instructed them to attack. Defending against this enemy was meaningless. Gehenna. Her flaming wings started covering Sonya's entire body, but they disintegrated as soon as their edges were touched. Sonya didn't have a single burn on her body. Logos. Her flaming wings became a directionally destructive sound wave, hitting Sonya, but it soon disappeared without any effect. Lucifer. Her wings converged into light, emitting a high burning fever, and shot at Sonya. However, the beam faded into black as it touched Sonya, and watching that scene, even Pam, whose name Mao meant Demon King, felt like she was looking into hell. She didn't see Sonya's eyes confused for a bit. She was running happily. Minos. Not even wind was able to blow her away. So, this is OP, not only does she have the 4 wings that she can see from and control willingly, but she can also turn them to flame, light, sound, wind. Very OP, but of course it's OP for Sonya because she can just turn anything, including light and sound and stuff, into nothingness. Like literally anything. Okay, Lucifer, winged convergent light, read that. Minos, not even one was able to blow her away. Sonya held open the palm of her hands against the gust of wind as the wind passed over Sonya, turning into black ash. Echidna. Poison wouldn't work either, as she thought there was no effect. Cactus. If the act of adding energy is meaningless, she had to think of an act that took it away. An act that took away energy. Attempting to freeze her at low temperatures had no effect at all as it scattered with Sonya's touch. Because Sonya's own axe wouldn't stop while Mao Pam was trying these kinds of attacks, Mao Pam had no choice but to constantly dodge. Or rather, it'd be more close to say that she had to continue running away. In this game of tag, Sonya was it, and touching her means death. The area was limited, so Pam couldn't run away, she couldn't run away whenever she wanted. If she ran away to an even worse location, the damage will merely expand. The only place Mao Pam could run to was here, the 4-lane road. Okay, now we have we're jumping to Nanako-san then with 10 hours 48 minutes remaining, so we're seeing a completely different group. Alright. So maybe everyone will be able to meet back up here. Let's see how long this has taken to read. We are 30 minutes in and about page 12. You know what? I'm not sure where I want to stop. Why is there such a long scene with no scene break? I'm gonna read this next section at least, so let's get to this one. Nanako-san, 10 hours and 48 minutes remaining. Hana was flying in the sky. Mana pointed to her and Ripple chased after her. An unexplainable situation occurred one after the other. Nanako-san, who kept being spun in circles by all this, was finally able to keep up. Soon Ripple came back holding Hana in her arms. Hana's body had been beaten very hard and one of her ears had been cut in half. Either way, she seemed to have been physically broken, and Mana called out to her. Hana lightly opened her eyes and curled her lips slightly. She smiled. Wow, I didn't think I'd be alive or if I'd ever see you again. Hana, don't strain yourself. I'm not trying to, but really, to think I'd survive from that place. Even though Hana, who'd been blinded and deafened, had no way to know who had rescued her, she was able to narrow it down by process of elimination. If everyone's here, then Mao Pam saved me, didn't she? A black sphere carried you here. Then it became a rectangular again and flew off. If I'm not wrong, I think those were Mao Pam's wings. Ah, so it really was Pam. So I guess I was rescued. I really was. Who did this to you? Was it Frederica's group? Ripple ran off to where Hana had flown from. If her information was correct, there was also more than one enemy. Would Ripple want to aid Mao Pam? Should Nanako-san also chase after there? Even if they went together, she didn't think she'd be useful at all, so she stayed by Hana's side. Instructions from her boss came to her goggles. Hana's injuries were severe. She had to find a place where no one would see them and allow Mana to heal her from there. They were good instructions. Hana was weak. She needs treatment somewhere where no one could find them. Nanako-san told Mana the same thing. They brought Hana past 3 alleyways to where the vending machines were earlier. Her boss had made a map of the entire city. She had told her that the vending machine spot past the 3 alleyways was a fine location. She was grateful that her instructions were so concrete. Mana drew a magical sigil with one hand on her note. Okay. Placing Hana on the center, she started chanting a spell. Perhaps she was casting a sort of healing spell. Whether she knew it or not, Hana was laying there with a thin smile. Nanako-san held on to Hana's hand. Okay, so that's the end of that, and since it's about halfway, I think I'm just going to read the other half for next week and make it 2 even videos, because I still have other things I want to record, and because I don't want my voice to die before them and all that. And the next section is kind of a big jump. But yeah. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll try to get it up as soon as possible. I didn't think that I'd be able to record this and Tower of God the same day, but since I'm cutting this here, I think I will be able to record both, and hopefully I can post both today, and then tomorrow will be Beastars, and so on and so forth. Haku will be Thursday, finally getting back into that. Plus, I'm definitely making some changes into that, so I would suggest watching. And yeah, that's it. So thank you all so much for watching this video. Like if you did like it. Comment down there to tell me what you thought of this chapter, what you thought of my thoughts on it. And I thought it was great. I really like the fight that's going on. Mao Pam's a really cool and OP character. I friggin' love Sonya B, and she's a really cool character. Even though she's a bad guy, she's a really cool bad guy. And also the comedic scenes with Pythie were so great. Only thing that I'm like, really, is that Postery and Rainbow have run away because they were supposed to be waiting at those vending machines. And I just really don't like Toko at this point, because never trust the mascot in Magical Girl Raising Project. Even though Fall wasn't that bad, still, because of Fav, never trust them. And Toko is not an exception to that. I definitely don't want Pukin to win, but I mean, I want somebody to take down Toko. So, either way, that's it, I guess. Like I said, like and comment, subscribe for more Magical Girl Raising Project, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff at the channel. And if you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us there, it's free for anyone. That's it. So, thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.